My name is Alan, and today I want to tell you a story about how the company I built from the inside out decided I was disposable. I'd given a decade of my life to keeping their factories alive. Yet one lunch changed everything. You'll want to hear this, because it's not just about betrayal. It's about what happens when the people in charge think loyalty can be replaced like a light bulb. Stick around, because by the end, you'll see why knowing your worth matters more than any title on the door. But before we get started, make sure you subscribe and drop a comment telling me where you're listening from. Your words push me to keep bringing real, hard-hitting stories straight to you. It happened over steak at Harrington's Grill, the kind of place executives parade clients through. Victor Lang, our CEO, leaned over his plate and told me the company was heading in a different direction. In plain English, I was being swapped out for Leonard Briggs's nephew, a young graduate from Crestfield Tech. I just nodded calmly and said, "That's how the game is played." What Victor didn't know was that I'd seen it coming months earlier. My credentials were already shrinking, my name erased from the leadership chain before the fork even touched his dessert. I was 43, and for the last 10 years, I'd been the invisible backbone of Graymont Industries' IT world. When I walked in, they were still on legacy OS, scribbling passwords in notebooks. I transformed a 5-person help desk into a 30-person team running 3 production sites that never slept. The machines in Fairmont didn't take breaks, and neither did I. Originally, this wasn't supposed to be permanent. After Sarah left me, 6 years of marriage gone with one note on the kitchen counter, I just needed something to keep my head busy. I ended up staying because I was good at it, better than anyone expected, and somewhere along, the way the servers, the networks, the safety nets, I treated them like they were mine. I'd dragged Graymont out of near collapse. When a ransomware attack left them exposed, I was hired as a temporary fixer, sleeping on my brother's couch. Instead, I rebuilt everything from scratch: networks, backups, staff training, and safeguards. When the 2017 blackout hit, every plant around us went dark, but Graymont's floors kept running. That earned me a seat at the big table, bigger budgets, and eventually my title as division head. I built a real team too. Clara, sharp as a blade, became my second brain. Marco, a programmer with instincts like radar, could solve problems before they became disasters. Together, we weren't just support staff anymore. We were the reason Graymont could swear to clients they'd never miss a shipment. Leonard Briggs himself shook my hand at the 2020 holiday event, thanking me for modernizing the company. For a moment, I thought I finally belonged. But the cracks began to show. In October, a so-called consultant showed up, quizzing me about systems I'd personally built. No one told me he was coming. Shortly after, my access to the senior notes archive vanished, brushed off as server cleanup. By January, Victor began canceling our weekly sessions with flimsy excuses. At the spring executive offsite, I overheard Leonard bragging about his nephew's graduation, the genius who had offers from Silicon Valley firms. I dismissed it at the time. I shouldn't have. The final blow came when Clara confessed she'd been pulled into a strategy meeting I should have led. When she brought up my absence, Victor skipped past her words like I didn't exist. "Feels like they're planning around you," she warned me. I waved it off, the same way Sarah once accused me of being too loyal for my own good. 2 days after that grim lunch, I stood in the server room long past 7 p.m. The low hum of the racks had always been my kind of quiet. 10 years of sweat and midnight hours blinked back at me in little green lights. Running my hand across the edge of the main console, I thought, this was my world. That's when Julian Cross, the nephew, appeared in the doorway. Polished suit, flashy watch, strolling in like the building already had his name on it. "Routine check," I said flatly. "Are you looking for something?" "Just getting a feel for the setup," he replied, strolling in. "Victor said you'd be showing me around." He studied the servers, nodded like a professor grading homework. "Impressive build. Bit old-fashioned, but solid." Old-fashioned. I'd upgraded those systems only 8 months earlier. "Old methods, but solid," Julian Cross said, running his eyes across the racks like he was grading a student project. "Old methods. I'd overhauled those servers less than a year ago. Then he added, almost casually, "Your notes are detailed. I've been reading them. I've got ideas to modernize this place." He said it was like a gift I should be thankful for. I forced out a polite response, but the words tasted bitter. Once he left, I pulled up the system logs. His account had been created 3 weeks before that lunch with Victor Lang. Top-level clearance. Every one of my documents already opened, reviewed, picked apart. I messaged Marco, Corner Brew Cafe, tomorrow 6:30. That night, I parked at Riverside Park, where Sarah and I once watched the sky burn orange over the water. Staring at the black winter waves, I remembered the day Victor promoted me to division head, telling me, "We couldn't run without you." Now, apparently, foundations can be swapped too. Marco was already seated when I arrived the next morning, a half-empty cup in front of him, exhaustion written under his eye. So he didn't need me to explain. "They're cutting you out," I said directly. "I figured," he admitted. "Been getting strange questions lately. They had me walk through your systems. I should have told you sooner. I'm sorry." I shook my head. Marco had kids and a mortgage. He couldn't afford rebellion. "What's your plan?" he asked. I hadn't realized I even had one until then. Watching commuters rush by outside the cafe window, the fog in my head cleared. "They think every secret is written in my documentation," I whispered. "But we both know the truth. It isn't." Marco leaned closer. "The private tools, the shortcuts." I nodded. "The hidden patches, the custom monitors, the interface only I understand. I'm not sabotaging them, but I'm not giving away what's mine either." He understood, and when I told him I needed copies of everything I'd built with my own framework, he agreed without hesitation. The following week, Victor took the stage at the all-hands. He spoke of fresh ideas, while Julian stood beside him, wearing the polite smile of a man already inheriting my seat. "Alan has been instrumental in building our IT foundation," Victor said, never once looking at me. "And we're thankful as he transitions the team to Julian's leadership." The room rippled with whispers. Clara caught my eye across the crowd. Her look was sharp, questioning. I gave her the slightest nod. Later, I sat down with Victor and Marlene from People Culture. I argued that some of what Julian was inheriting wasn't theirs to claim, pieces I'd built before joining Greymont Industries. "Anything created during employment is company property," Marlene said, sliding the contract toward me. "Not CoreLink," I countered. "That interface existed months before I ever walked through your doors. You licensed it. You never owned it." Victor shifted in his chair, uneasy. "That was 10 years ago, Alan. The component, he has grown, and so has CoreLink. Every update still sits on my original foundation," I replied evenly. "I'm not asking for a fight. I just want compensation for my intellectual property." They exchanged a glance. "We'll review it," Victor finally said, which was corporate language for stall until I'm gone. The next morning, my server access was downgraded again. Transition security protocol. Hours later, Julian held a team meeting without inviting me. I showed up anyway. "Alan," he said, voice tight. "Good to see you. I was just explaining some changes to our system design." "Which system?" I asked from the doorway. "The production floor," he answered confidently. "We'll streamline the protocols." I kept my tone flat. "Those protocols prevent machinery from failing during peak runs. They're not clutter. They're safeguards." His smile thinned. "Modern platforms don't need such complexity." Before I could respond, Clara cut in. "They're not complex. They're precise. Alan designed them after the 2017 breakdown." The room went quiet. Julian's certainty cracked for a split second, but he quickly turned back to the whiteboard, brushing off the moment. That afternoon, an email from legal arrived. Greymont was claiming total ownership over CoreLink and every connected system. Their offer, a $7,500 transition bonus. But what hit harder came the next day. Julian had lined up private sessions with each of my team members. Not for handovers, for evaluations. He was deciding who stayed and who got cut. Marco texted me afterward. He asked if your systems are necessary or just too complicated. He's fishing for dirt. That evening, a different email landed in my personal inbox from one of our suppliers. They were confused about a new licensing deal Greymont had pushed on them, supposedly tied to my integrations. I opened the attachment. Victor had already signed away my supplier modules to an emerging firm run by Entente, of Julian's old classmates. They weren't just replacing me. They were dismantling everything I'd built and selling it off piece by piece. They weren't just showing me the door. They were stripping down my work and auctioning it piece by piece. When I tried to reach the backup servers to secure my original builds, my access was already gone. That was the line. If they thought I'd walk out quietly, they didn't know me at all. The picture was starting to make sense. Julian Cross hadn't been dropped in suddenly. He'd been studying my blueprints for months, handed clearance before I was even told about my replacement. That night, I drove out to a highway diner and slid into a booth across from Tom Reeves, an old contact from the security world. Tom was the kind of guy executives like Victor Lang wouldn't be caught dead near. No suits, no gloss, just results. Legally, you're cornered, Tom said after hearing my story. But something doesn't add up. Why push you out now? Greymont's profitable. I've been asking myself the same thing, I admitted. Let me poke around, he offered. No hacking, just pulling threads. 2 nights later, near midnight, Tom called. Alan, you need to see this. He'd uncovered regulatory disclosures showing Greymont Industries was deep in negotiations with Ironbridge Group, a massive firm out of Westbridge. The buyout hinged on Greymont proving 2 things, sleek infrastructure and a smooth leadership handover. They're scrubbing the old guard to make the place look shiny, Tom explained. And CoreLink, your interface, is plastered all over the valuation. Without it, the sales number collapses. Then came the gut punch. Leonard Briggs had already cashed out most of his stake. The payout and cushy rolls at Ironbridge would fall straight into Victor and his inner circle's pockets. What crushed me wasn't the merger. It was the email trail Tom dug up. Victor and Leonard had been plotting my replacement 8 months ago, while I was grinding through sleepless nights patching a major breach. They were holding interviews with Julian while I was saving their plants from disaster. I drove to the old factory district, the very lot where I'd once sketched the bones of CoreLink on a scrap notebook. I sat there until daylight bled through broken windows of abandoned warehouses. Back home, I tore through boxes until I found an old USB stick. Plugged in, it held gold. The original CoreLink code, fully time-stamped, created months before my first day at Greymont. Alongside it were emails from Victor himself, asking me to integrate CoreLink, admitting it was mine, promising we'd sort ownership later. Promises, lies, leverage. The next day, Julian summoned me into a room with Victor and Marlene. Victor didn't waste words. We're speeding up the transition. Friday is your last day. 2 weeks instead of 6, I noted. Any reason? Julian has shown he can lead, Marlene replied smoothly. And frankly, Alan, your attitude hasn't helped. Julian added, we'll need full documentation and training wrapped up by Wednesday. I kept my voice steady. And CoreLink, have you reviewed the original agreements? Victor's expression hardened. Legally determined, all integrated systems are ours. The separation package is generous. Take it. I'll let my lawyer look at everything, I said, standing. Don't drag this out, Victor warned. It won't change anything. Outside, I sent Marco a single message. Plan B, tonight. 7 hours later, in the back corner of a grocery store lot, Marco slipped me a portable SSD. Everything you asked for, code bases, logs, keys, he said quietly. Why risk this? I asked. His answer was simple. Because they think every one of us is disposable. That weekend I worked in silence, archiving everything. The original CoreLink files, Victor's emails, the license agreements, dates proving it all began before Greymont. Monday morning, I arrived before sunrise. Clara was already at her desk, shadows under her eyes. You heard about the new timeline? She asked. I nodded. The team's rattled, she admitted. Julian pulled them all weekend. Tried reverse engineering your monitoring system. It backfired. They missed 3 alerts. Damage? I asked quietly. Line 3 down for 4 hours. Cost them about $52,000 in lost output. I kept my face blank. But inside I felt the shift. Their modernization was already bleeding them. And this was just the beginning. Alan. Clara hesitated, eyes heavy with worry. I think I'm next. Julian's been asking if I'm even needed. I'd suspected as much. Clara knew too many of the details that kept Greymont's plants alive. I leaned closer. Do you trust me? Completely. I slid a locked folder across her desk. If anything unusual happens this week, open this. It explains everything. That afternoon, I met with 3 patent lawyers, paying rush fees to file provisional patents for the most vital parts of CoreLink. Not the entire system, only the crucial modules that tied directly into the manufacturing machinery. By Tuesday, I'd finished every document Julian Cross demanded, sat in his meetings, answered questions politely, played the model employee. At night, I worked with Tom Reeves, moving my original code onto an off-site secure server. By midnight, a standalone CoreLink was running outside Greymont's reach. Wednesday morning brought a surprise, an email from Ironbridge Group inviting me to discuss mutual business interests at their city center office. Word was out I was leaving Greymont and someone was hedging bets. I forwarded it to my lawyer and called their senior operations director, suggesting we meet after my official exit. He agreed without hesitation. That night, I made my final move. Using the credentials Marco had preserved, I updated 3 CoreLink components, digital signature checks to block tampering, a license timer set to expire in 8 days, 1 day after my last shift, and a clean renewal pathway. Legal, non-destructive, just protective. On Thursday, Julian called me in. His eyes narrowed. Some of the team says you've been acting strange. Should I be worried? I kept my voice flat. Just wrapping things up. We'll be changing all admin passwords tomorrow after you're gone, he pressed. Standard procedure, I said, though it won't matter. CoreLink runs fine, no matter who holds admin. That's the beauty of it.